Hello, and welcome to this demo on hacking web applications. Let's get started. The first thing I want to do is show you a cross-site scripting attack. So let's just quickly open up a web browser and go to a vulnerable website. And I'm going to just use the damn vulnerable web app which I used previously. So let's just go to HTTP and then the IP, which is 45.55.133.158, and there it is. It's just log in and scroll down, change our security setting to low. Okay, it's changed to low, as you can see there. And I want to quickly show you a cross-site scripting attack. So in cross-site scripting, as you can see, there is a cross-site script already on this page. So what happened is I set up a web page, and as a result, as soon as I click on this page as a user, I already get the cross-site scripting come back. But let's just take a look at it and I'll show you exactly how it's done. So in this website we have a sign the guest book functionality. So we'll sign the guest book as a bad guy, and then we're going to embed a JavaScript. So this is what I mean by making sure that untrusted data is validated. If you don't validate this, in other words, if you don't look for text only, the web application is actually going to run the script in the browser, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to just do an alert, a JavaScript alert, and I'm just going to say you have been hacked, and close that bracket and close the script tag. Excellent. So if I sign that guestbook now, you can see there it is. So basically what we've done is we've embedded the script. So it's sitting in one of these messages here. There's our bad guys. You can see there's no message really, but as soon as the page is loaded, it loads the JavaScript. Now that JavaScript, what I've done here is I've literally just used the alert command, but in JavaScript you can redirect them to a website, you can have them download malware to your site, etc., etc. And this is a very common vulnerability in a lot of web applications because it actually is quite difficult to do the validation. But there is ways and means to develop those validations, and that is why cross-site scripting can be defeated. However, as you can see, it's very easy to pretty much do a cross-site scripting attack when the validation is not there. And I've done 3 different examples. And as you can see, let's just reload the page one more time. So you can see there's 3 scripts running on this page now. So let's just resend that. So the first one, that message over there, John, it says cross-site scripting. The next one steals my cookie, as you can see there. And the next one does an alert again with you have been hacked. Now I just want to quickly show you the example of a cookie stealer. So let's do bad guy 2, and we put the script in again, the script tag, and we're going to do an alert, and the command is document.cookie. Now in a real-world cross-site scripting attack, you could actually just send this document.cookie to another website, so you can actually collect all the cookies of people coming and steal their session IDs. So if I sign the guestbook now, there's the first cross-site scripting, there's the first cookie I stole, there's the you've been hacked, which I added, and added again, and then here is the new cookie. As you can see, there's my session ID, and there's the second part of it. And that, in essence, is a very, very simple example of a very effective cross-site scripting attack. Let's move on and look at some WordPress brute forcing. Okay, so I've built a vulnerable WordPress site. Let's just quickly go check it out. The IP is HTTP 138 197.126.21. As you can see, here is my WordPress site with a bad post that I've also added. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is show you a web vulnerability scanner. And there's a great scanner in Kali Linux for WordPress. It's actually maintained by Sucuri, or they sponsor it. So if we go to Web Application Analysis, you can see at the bottom there's WP Scan. So you can just activate it by running it at that command, or you could pretty much just type WP Scan at the command prompt, like that. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is just run a quick high-level vulnerability scan on the site and see what it comes back with. And the command is just WP Scan --URL, and then the URL of this website. In this case, it's just an IP address, 138.197.126.21. And let that scan run for a while, and I'll come back once it's completed. Okay, so the scan has completed. As you can see, it only took 16 seconds. But let's just go through and see what it actually picks up. As you can see, it picks up a whole bunch of information. Okay, so it started. That's the time. It tells us that the README file exists, which exposes a version number. It tells me that my Apache header, it's running on 2.4.18 on Ubuntu. It tells me the XML RPC interface is there. It allows the upload directory. The includes directory is also enabled, so you can upload stuff. As you can see, I specifically chose a very old version of WordPress, 3.9.10, and there's 16 vulnerabilities which have been identified in this version, and you can go through each one and see, well, there's server-side request forgery, there's an open redirect vulnerability, there's SSRF vulnerabilities, there's reflected cross-site scripting, there's script compression, there's upload, and a whole bunch of other vulnerabilities. And then further down, it also looked at my theme. My theme's only on version 1.1, and the latest version is 1.9, so it tells me all about that, and now I should actually pretty much update that. It also found two plugins, Download Manager, and you can see that Download Manager has a stored cross-site scripting attack, as well as a remote file inclusion attack, and then privilege escalation, as well as authenticated things. So this shows you that in WordPress, it's not only WordPress that could be vulnerable, it's all the plugins and themes that you add to WordPress that also have vulnerabilities. As you can see, the other one, Reflex Gallery, it's also got an arbitrary file upload and a jQuery pretty photo cross-site scripting attack. So this pretty much shows you how powerful WP Scan is, and what you would then do is literally go to all these references, find the exploits. You can see there it is in the exploit database, and then using a tool like Metasploit, go and attack that. But we're not going to do that in this video. We're going to actually attack another site. In this video, in this specific example for WordPress, I actually want to show you the brute force attack. So as you can see, it hasn't given me any users, and I really need the users to perform a cross-site scripting attack. So the command to do that, let's just clear the screen so you give us some space, is WP Scan whack URL, and then that IP address again, 138.197.126.21, and then you just to double minus again and enumerate, and then you want users, so you just put a U. Then it's going to run the WP Scan again, but this time it's going to enumerate the users for us. So let that run a while, and then I'll come back once it's completed. Okay, so our WordPress WP scan has been done, and as you can see, it identified two users for me, test2 and bad guy. So one of the best practices for WordPress is never to use the admin as a username, because it's easily guessed. So our WordPress admin on this side did do that. He used test2 and bad guy, but unfortunately WP scan will pick up the users no matter what you are. Okay, so now we're going to do a brute force attack on those two usernames, and it's quite simple. use WP scan again. Let's just look at the actual command. So it's WP scan. Let's just run that. Okay, and if we go to the command a little bit higher up, you can see here, do word list password brute force attack on the admin username only. So we're going to actually do that. Let's just copy that to make our lives a bit easier, and copy and bring it down to the bottom and paste it. Okay, it's not happy with that, but it's fine because we are actually going to change a few things. So first thing we're going to do is get rid of that .rb because we don't need it. We're going to change the URL to our IP address, which is 138.197.126.21, and I'm going to change the word list to one that I've specifically created for this demo, which is located at root/subs.txt. So when it comes to word lists, there are quite a few word lists in already that come with Kali, but there's also thousands that you can download off the internet. I'll go show you those in a minute. Sorry. And let's just try and enumerate our test2 username. So just put test2 and need WP scan. As you can see, it's going to go through the scan once again, and we'll come back once it is completed. And our scan has completed, and it has successfully brute forced the password, which is password with a capital P 123. And that pretty much is just a very quick demo on WP scan. As you can see, it's a very powerful tool used specifically for WordPress vulnerability scanning, and the team are very good at keeping it up to date. So you'll notice if you start WP scan and you haven't used it for a while, it will automatically go and update itself with the latest exploits and vulnerabilities. Great. So now I quickly want to show you how to pretty much use an exploit on a vulnerable web application to gain root access. We have done this before, but this is a slightly different example, and I actually want to show you how powerful Armitage and Metasploit are. So let's move on to that. Welcome back. Okay, so as you can see, I've got another virtual machine or another application that's very useful for penetration testing practice. It's called Metasploitable 2, and you can download it off the internet. It comes in the form of a VMware virtual machine, which you can then run on a VMware, or you can convert the VMDK file to VHD to run on Hyper-V or VDK to run on Oracle's VirtualBox. Anyway, so as you can see, it's got a whole bunch of vulnerable web apps. There's our famous DVWA, but I prefer to install it from scratch. But as you can see, it's got this application called Twiki, which is very vulnerable at this point, and I'm just going to show you how to use Armitage to actually exploit this application. So let's just quickly switch over to Armitage, which is over here, and we add our host, and its IP address is 192.168.1.107. Let's just add that, add the host, and let's just scan it quickly. And as you can see, it's got a whole bunch of open ports because it's Metasploitable. Once it's busy with that, we can say find attacks, and now it's going to query all the exploits we have. And while it does that, I just want to quickly show you, if you go into this exploits directory, and you can see there's different exploits, but under Unix and under web app, which is what we're talking about here, you can see there's a whole host of web application exploits that are preloaded for you. And if we go through the list, you'll see near the bottom there's some WP, which is for the WordPress stuff. There's Sugar CRM, there's some basic PHP, there's Nagios, there's some Joomla, there's also some Drupal in here if I recall. There's 2 Drupal exploits. Okay, but the one we're going to use is good old Twiki, because that's what we're using here. So let's use this Twiki search. So you could go right click, attack web app, and then go through like all these very painful menus to get to the one that you want. But the easier way of doing it is literally just taking it and dragging it onto the actual machine. And as you can see, here it is. We're going to use the tricky search function arbitrary command execution, and let's launch that and see what happens. Alright, so as you can see, it's taking a bit of time, so let's try another tricky exploit. Let's try the tricky history. We once again move it onto there and say launch. Great. Okay, so now we need to wait a short while, because sometimes these exploits don't run, and sometimes they do, so patience is a virtue. And let's come back and see what happens. Great, and after about a minute or so, we get our command shell opened, which is excellent news, because now, as you can see, our little icon has changed once again to it being owned, and we can right click and interact with the shell. So let's do that. We say shell, there's our shell command. Let's do an ifconfig, and if we just scroll that up slightly, it should be this IP address of the vulnerable machine, 192.168.1.7. And also do a whole bunch of other. So let's do a print working directory. As you can see, we're on etc. Let's go to cd / cd root rather, do an ls. Okay, as you can see, I have full access to the root directory. Let's go to the var directory and see what's running there. Cd var, and do an ls, and let's do a cd www and do an ls, and there are all our applications. So now, as a malicious hacker, I can literally go to Twiki and just do an ls, and there's my index.html. So maybe if I change that, so we can do a quick nano, and then a Twiki, index.html. Okay, so there's our index file. Unfortunately, you can't read it in here, but in theory you'd be able to download it using FTP, make a change to the HTML, and then bring it back onto the server and deface it with whatever message you wanted. So I hope that gives you a good understanding of how large web application penetration testing actually is. I mean, I've shown you in this video a cross-site scripting attack, I've shown you a brute force password login attack on WordPress, and I've shown you an Armitage exploit attack. So like I said before, this is a very large field. It's actually an area of specialization, and the best way to learn it is actually to practice. And I highly recommend you download Metasploitable 2, which you can find on the internet, as well as Damn Vulnerable Web App. There's a whole bunch of other tools, but I like those two the most. And get familiar with WP Scan, get familiar with Armitage web application spoofing. And if you go into applications here on your Kali menu and web application analysis, you'll see there's a whole bunch of other tools. There's Burp Suite, there's HTTP Track, there's OWASP Zap, there's WP Scan, there's W3AF, and all of these do totally different things and very similar things. But I just showed you a few of the tools that I like to use when actually doing web application vulnerability scanning and web application vulnerability exploitation. There's also fuzzing that you can do and a whole bunch of other things. That's why I said it's a very, very large topic, and it really is beyond the scope of this specific module in this specific course. Thank you very, very much for watching.